Makyam. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akyam, spreading this truth and sincerity. Shalom. So in this video, I actually want to, talk about, talk about the things that we might have going on in our lives that they're not like it's not that we're going off or that we're doing anything wrong with those type of things, but it's more like things that are hindering our productivity within the ministry, or things that are hindering our productivity in general, right? And the scriptures actually recommend to take those things and put them from us, to put them away, like stop occupying ourselves with certain things that are hindering us, man. It might be that you're doom scroller on the phone. Work on that. Get rid of that type of behavior. Things that take up time, but are not beneficial for your life. They don't add on to what you want to achieve. They don't add on to what you want to get done for the day. Things that are really hindering us in our day-to-day walk, man. One of the examples that I gave, doom scrolling on the phone. Might be that you're too occupied with playing video games. Might be that you're constantly on a dating app. Things like that are not necessarily wrong for us to do, but they are hindering our productivity, and they are hindering where we actually should put our focus and our mind, man, because we should put our mind towards Yahweh Shem Yoshai, man. We should be beneficial for the body. And that's why it says in Matthew chapter 5 in verse 29, it says, "And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell." So these two verses can be applied both on a bigger and smaller level, man. Because if we look at it from a smaller level, it pertains to us as individuals, and certain things that we should put off from ourselves, man. Things that are hindering us, things that keep us from doing the things that we ought to do, which that is to study to show ourselves approved, a workman that need not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the sincere word of truth, man. And if you look at it from a bigger perspective, it is referring to individual members in the camps, man, that make up the body, because there's a whole chapter in the book of Corinthians dedicated towards explaining that we as individuals are like, body members, that are part of that whole body, that we all have that, part within the body to function in a certain way, you know. So I do not want to go into, the last thing that I actually addressed, which that is the being a part of, the whole body, being a single member, being referred to as, a body part. But I want to, stick to the topic that I started off with, which that is, that we might have things that we have going on, that do not benefit us, man. Things that we have to put to the side to be productive, man. And when I look, at myself, because I make this video first and foremost for myself, man. First and foremost to myself. Things that I'm very much struggling with right now, is the diet, the training, the working out, Also, I'm basically, suffering from doom scrolling myself, because, after a long day of work, which, that got me cooked, got me burned up, basically, the only thing that I want to do is I want to hop in my bed, and just relax, man, just, calm the fuck down. But, those are not the things that we should be doing, man. Because basically what we're doing is we're wasting our time, the body that is given unto us, to take care of, because that is what it is. This body was lent unto us, and we need to take care of it to the best of our abilities. We need to also make sure that it is able to, function properly, man. And if we do not, put in the right fuel, if we do not put in the exercise, our body starts to decline, starts to, regress. It starts to go backwards, and it does not start to move forward. Which, if it doesn't go forward, it means that, over time, we're going to be less productive. Our body's able to do less over time. Our memory starts to fade. We start to get, all these type of ailments. So those are certain things that we need to, occupy ourselves with before we're not able to, be profitable, in general, man. Being too tired, not being able to, read, make videos, study, things like that, man. And it might not be, major things that you would need to address yourself. It can be small things, the minor things, of which like, yeah, I'm able to put those away. And of course, you're going to have certain things that are going to be more difficult for you to put away and to basically, get in subjection, man. Apostle Paul himself said the same thing. I think it was in Romans. It is not in Romans, though. Corinthians. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Damn. Hey. 9 verse 24. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain. So if you have a competition going on, a race, that there's only going to be one winner. You're going to have someone second to third place, and then you're going to have the rest, right? But everyone, that is in that race, they want to be, the first one, right? They want to be number one. Well, not that, this truth is like a race or competition, but the comparison being made is like, we all want to win. We all want to, make it, so we all should put in the effort, to obtain that which we, are actually working towards, which first and foremost is the salvation, being delivered out of the state, that we're in, you know. And in order to do so, we have to, basically, pluck out that eye, or, get rid of that hand, or get rid of that, foot, because it's better for us to, have to deal with, that being plucked out or cut off than, to suffer the consequences of it not being, you know, taken away. Because let me say it like this, right? Let's say that hand or that finger is infected. It's infected, right? And an infection can spread throughout the whole body. But the moment that an infection is able to enter into the bloodstream and it goes to the heart, goes to the brain or whatever, that means death, man. You need to compare it to that. So it's better for you to pluck out, that infection that is in the body, cut it out of the hand, cut it out of the feet, amputate it or whatever, than that you in the end should suffer the whole, consequences of not having dealt with it, right? So it says, verse 25, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Temperate goes into self-control. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible, you see. So even the people that in this world are trying to compete and, do all them things, they're basically using self-control, and they're trying to obtain that corruptible crown, that medal, that cup, the World Cup, recently, was took place. These people, usurp self-control, man. It says, now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible, yeah. Because the moment that we're going to inherit, the everlasting kingdom, it ain't going to be able to be corrupted, man. It ain't going to be, taken away, no mold, no nothing, no rust, nothing's gonna happen to it, man. It's gonna belong to us forever. Verse 26, I therefore shall run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. And that's also another thing, right? You can preach, but if you're not able to, put the things that you preach, put it into practice what you preach, then that's not a good thing to happen. That's not a good trait. You should always apply those things, to the best of your ability. And it might take some time. It might take a while. But the point is, you should work on it, man. You should, get yourself under control. Put that body under subjection, man. Get rid of the things that need to be taken rid of, or need to be taken care of to get rid of, so that you're able to be productive for Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. Productive for yourself, productive, for your family, productive for the brothers, man. But first and foremost for Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because if we focus on Yahweh Shem Yahushua, then the rest will also follow, man. Then the rest will come, pertaining to the book of Matthew chapter 6, right? Focus ye first on the kingdom of heaven, all these things shall be added unto you. You see? So yeah, most important thing is to basically identify, what it is that is holding you back, that is not doing, what you're supposed to be doing. And then focus one day, one step at a time, and make daily choices that align with where you want to be and who you want to become. They say basically fake it till you make it. It's like a strange saying, but in actuality, there's a lot of truth behind it if you really think about it. Because you have to, become the man that you want to become, right? You have to act accordingly. So yeah, with that, I do hope and pray that this video was edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And Shalom to the sincere Akim, spreading this truth and sincerity. Shalom.